The Power of Kinship. Welcome. I'm Randye Kaye, and this is another Power of Kinship conversation. This time with Courtney Maum, a fellow Connecticut person. She, according to LinkedIn, a corporate namer, a creative retreat leader, and an author. But Courtney, hello, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to talk to you. So you first came across my radar because I speak about the power of kinship and how important it is for people to get together and be in the same room and touch each other and hug each other and, you know, all those wonderful things we're not allowed to do anymore. And your name just came up on LinkedIn as someone who speaks about the same things. And so I went out and got your 2017 book, Touch, which is the second cover, I guess, because the first one was a little bit different. I've seen two covers.
Yeah, that's the hardcover cover, and then the paperback cover
is the other one.
I'd have to reach and get. Yeah,
okay. I'll post a picture of it. And so in reading this, I know how much research must have gone into your feelings and your knowledge about human touch. And so I'm not going to give away the book. I'm going to ask you to do that. But also, just so you know, Courtney's books include I'm Having So Much Fun Here Without You. That was about 5 years ago, right?
What is time anymore?
I don't probably know. Yeah, and Costa Alegre, is that how you say that?
Costa Alegre.
Costa Alegre. Okay, and before and after the book deal, which I would imagine is a nonfiction. Oh, you have everything. There you go. Fantastic. And then Touch, which is what brought you to my attention. And I'm guessing it might be having a bit of a resurgence now.
I don't know.
I don't know. We always hope so, right?
I was hoping so, but you know, there's a lot going on. So
you never know. In books, you know, I've written two, but you know, one was majorly published, and I always feel like a book is like a baby, like you give birth to it and then you see what it does. Because
yeah, and you got to feed it and teach it to read
and nurture it and make people aware of it. But you know, once the book is out there, it kind of takes on a life of its own. And so, and it came to my attention, and I've been talking about it, and we want to talk about it today and the concepts behind it. So this was published in 2017, and you know, my whole Power of Kinship speeches were like clipped cruelly when COVID-19 started.
Yeah.
I can't get up in front of an audience of hundreds of people and say, oh, come on, shake each other's hand, collective energy. You know, I'm also an improv actress by trade, and it's all about collective energy and stronger together. And here we are alone together. So I have a few questions, but this conversation can go wherever we want it to go. So my first question is if you can just briefly describe the story of Touch and what prompted you to write it?
Sure. So Touch is, I think of it as a smart romantic comedy. It's a story of a trend forecaster. She's American, but she's been based in Paris for quite a long time, 40-year-old named Sloane Jacobson. And she has been estranged from her family in America. She's in a pretty tricky, sexless relationship with a French man. And she's invited to consult at a massive company called Mammoth, which is basically a turducken of Google, Apple, and Amazon in New York. And specifically, she's been tasked to look at trends in technology. Sounds great. So off she goes. The problem is when she gets there, she starts to feel that the next trends in technology are going to be a movement away from technology and back towards intimacy and touch, which causes a lot of problems, number one, with her employer, and also with the sort of non-authentic relationship she's in herself and the fact that she has been estranged from her family. So we're meeting a woman who is, you know, in the middle of a bit of an emotional collapse. And with me, my process is sort of funny. I write a lot of books before I should say I write a lot of drafts before I find what I'm actually writing about.
Yeah.
So, but looking back now, the power of hindsight, this book came to me, and it didn't come to me easily because I wasn't really being honest with myself, but it came to me during a period where I was really entering a depression, but I was very productive. So I didn't feel like I felt guilty about thinking that this could be a depression. How could it be depression when I'm publishing books and giving talks and, having friends over and staying active? And I had my daughter was 2 years old at that point, and we live, especially then, we've since moved, but we were in a log cabin in the middle of nowhere. And writing can be a very solitary endeavor. And I was living like a completely untouched life. My daughter, especially at that age, who's a very huggy and sensual person, wanted her body to herself, wanted to do everything alone. And my husband and I were having problems, and I just was functioning as a completely untouched person, and was starting to experience firsthand, what touch deprivation can do to you. So once I sort of acknowledged that, I started thinking, what does that look like for other people? Or other people experiencing this? And I was looking at my own friends who, or a lot of them are creatives like myself, and many have high-powered positions as gatekeepers. They own galleries, or they're editors, or I don't know what. And I was noticing that they didn't have a lot of human skin-to-skin contact either. Dating had moved online. Meetings were, taking place online. A lot of telecommuting. Of course, all these things, they have tremendous advantages, but and we're also moving away from our families, creating urban families. And I was also noticing that people weren't making decisions from a place of instincts anymore. Something as small as recognizing whether they were hungry or whether bodies needed exercising. We're outsourcing that to Fitbits and to our phones telling us where we should eat, instead of looking around and saying, that restaurant, I've never heard of it, but it looks okay. And I used to work as a trend forecaster. I lived in Paris in my 20s, and I worked as a trend forecaster. And I was thinking, as most writers do, how can I best tell this story? What point of view, what career can I give my character to best give her a mouthpiece for that? And I thought, a trend forecaster, someone who's looking at what's happening across many different industries, felt like the right thing. And the rest of the story built from there.
Yeah. Wow. It's fast. And I know trend forecaster is a real thing. I narrate audiobooks, and I've done a couple. One book that was entirely about how fashion forecasts the future. So it's a fascinating field. And in your book, Sloan is like, she predicts the swipe, which is a brilliant, brilliant thing. And of course, there were a lot before COVID-19. There was a lot of noise about what's digital doing to us. Yes, it's convenient, but is convenience always the best thing? And, your daughter is still rather little. I have 3 grandchildren, and their ages 4, 2.5, and 1.5. And the 1.5-year-old knows how to swipe. It's, we keep screens away from them, but they're like the ultimate toy. And so we wonder what it's doing to our brains. And there was this whole movie we saw called Screenagers about what it does. So here was this like, okay, digital. And one of the things I did in my presentations was request that people put their cell phones away, not just off, not to vibrate, but away, because research has shown that even a visible cell phone between 2 people degrades the value of the conversation.
100%. I cannot eat dinner. I mean, in the life before, where we actually went to restaurants with people, right?
Yes.
If a friend put a phone on the restaurant table, I couldn't concentrate. I had to, on what we were saying, I had to ask them to get it out of view. It felt, it felt like there was a lawyer there or something, and
it's third presence. It's like
it's uninvited. Well, then you're also inviting that person's employer, spouse, mistress, whoever. Everyone's coming to the table because they get the notifications. The New York Times is having dinner with you. They send so many notifications. None of it is good news,
Right. And so we're of like mind in that. And now here we are.
Yeah.
Comes COVID-19. And honestly, it feels like within 2 days, we were suddenly confined to our homes, and our phones are our lifeline, and Zoom is our lifeline. And suddenly, thank goodness. I mean, we're having Zoom dates and game nights, and I'm keeping in touch with people. It was just too difficult to keep in touch with before because we had to travel 2 hours. And yet there's a scene in your book where Sloan is going to, I think she's seeing a doctor, and just touches her hand.
Yeah.
And she has this instinctual reaction that surprised her. And I had that. I was 16 years between husbands, and I had 2 young kids at the time, and a little kid's touch is amazing and wonderful. Kind of not the same as an adult touch. And I'm not even talking sexual. I'm just talking touch. And I remember going to the doctor, and he put a stethoscope on my back, and I was like, oh,
yep.
touch
Yeah.
my hand. So there's this need, and we may want it, and we may know we need it. And look, I'm quarantined with my husband and my grown son, and we're pod quarantining with my daughter and her husband and their 3 little ones. So I get to hug my daughter every day, and I get to hug my husband and the babies. But I know people who are in their apartments 32 days straight without a human touch.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if you must have done a lot of research into the human needs. So now here we are in COVID-19, and even those of us who bought into the idea that, yes, we need each other, there's collective energy in the room, there's something about when we're all kind of breathing the same air, which is now dangerous. So what in light of what you know about the need for human connection, and there is a range, there are introverts and extroverts, and I'm more on the east side, but even introverts need something. And so what is your feeling about now with COVID-19 and our need for real in-person human connection? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think about this all the time, and I don't think there's an answer, of course, because people are going to want to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that people who maybe weren't aware of their need for physical touch are going to be more aware, and maybe we'll have more agency in seeking it out. I mean, to be honest, I find myself wondering a lot about the future of like professional sex work, and sexual therapy work and healing modalities. I think that people might start feeling empowered to turn to professionals for massage, Reiki, have their scalps touched, their feet touched. It might start there in almost therapeutic ways. And then, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I wonder with the online dating, whether people will be quicker now to meet in person, or will they never meet in person? I honestly don't know. And things keep changing. And right when things were starting to open up, now there's a lot of curfews in cities. So,
right.
I mean, I have to imagine that somewhere down the road within the next year, people are going to want to claim the power and potential and beauty that is within our bodies,
mm-hmm.
and want to share it with others in a consensual way, whatever that looked like. It could just be groups of people holding hands. I mean, I don't mean to sound like kumbaya, but I think it's going to start with hand holding,
Okay.
Visual hand holding. I think that's going to become a pretty powerful symbol of unity and solidarity. I just saw an amazing video today of protesters, I think from yesterday, they were on the Brooklyn Bridge, almost filling the bridge, lying down with their hands behind their backs.
Yeah, I saw that.
Aside from everything else, the proximity of those bodies, especially now during COVID, where they're taking an actual risk. I really think that the visual power of bodies together and the optics of bodies of all colors together it's just very important, and it's important for people to see. And once you feel the energy of how important that is, people are going to want more of it. So I think there will be a coming together, and after that, I mean, who knows? Honestly.
Yeah, but that's interesting because, you are by trade a trend forecaster, and I don't think I'm giving away a huge secret when Sloan in the book kind of like, I'm not sure digital is our complete future anymore. And maybe you're right that being forced into digital only connections, while it is convenient and it is a good placeholder, I believe it's a good placeholder, like people that you've had a good foundation with of shared experience. you can kind of keep that alive digitally. And I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Believe me, I'm so grateful. For instance, I have a Monday morning, I'm a voiceover talent. So we have a Monday morning voiceover mastermind group, and we've been meeting 9 o'clock Monday morning for like 4 years. I love these people,
Yeah.
and it becomes a therapy group too sometimes. And it's mostly like, it's supposed to be mastermind your marketing, but we're friends. And yet when we all met at a convention, and we
Was
all
weird.
decided it was weird. It was wonderful. It just took a few minutes, but we all went out for dinner together, and we had to sort of reestablish our love
Yeah.
in a human situation. And then it was gangbusters 3-hour dinner, but it was that kind of awkward transition. So I think that your book is especially poignant in these times. And get it, get hardcover. It's also on an audiobook and so on. But the concepts. So I was wondering if you and I could maybe, let me see if there's anything else, because we talked about the cell phones in a box during a meeting, because she says to her boss, you have to force people to remember what it's like to pay attention. So
Yeah.
that's been there even before COVID-19. But now that we're sheltering in place, do you and I, because believe it or not, we're 20 minutes into a half-hour conversation already. I knew it would go fast.
So fast.
What do you think? And you know, there's no director going, you must end at, out at 30 minutes, but we can go a little bit over. But I'll share something I think that I talk about in my website, Power of Kinship, that at the very beginning I wrote that I thought that we could all do to kind of remember that we are all human beings, and physical touch, especially at the beginning, was very, very frowned upon. And so I said using people's names. It's not human touch, but if you know your neighbor's name, instead of going hi, say hi David. Just someone hearing their name is a way to connect. Even in emails, just use that person's first name if you have that kind of relationship. I also thought, and these are totally, out of my head, but people seem to like them, that noticing that we are being separated by circumstance and by masks. So I can't see someone smile unless it reaches their eyes. And there's a barrier, a physical plastic barrier between you and the cashier if you brave it in Target or somewhere. But I have found that just a little conversation of thank you for coming to work today, and oh, I see you're in training, how are you doing? It's the same stuff we used to do before, but it seems harder with this barrier between us. So kind of acknowledging people's eyes, acknowledging that they've gone to work. People are waving more, and people are using their front yards like I've never seen.
I
like,
know.
Always about the back deck, but now it's like, oh, it's Danny's 16th birthday, and oh, a graduate lives here. And I think we have this need to reach out to strangers or to a second circle of friends. My tight circle is tight. We can't necessarily hug each other, but we can still reach out in ways that aren't through a camera that will connect us. So those are my thoughts. Anything to add to that? Or
I love that. It's funny when you talk about using people's names, I think it actually feels like a touch. I experience it when someone uses my name, I experience it as a touch. And there's gestures when you're in front of a screen or a plastic screen, you can hand over the heart or thumbs up, little gestures that we can make to say thank you, or I'm with you, gestures of solidarity, of course. And then something we've been doing, and again, I live in somewhat of a rural area, but I think that people could do this in apartment buildings if they're comfortable with it. My daughter has set up a pen pal system with children that are in walking distance of our house, and we have a tennis ball can that we tied to a tree, and she writes notes. She's 6, and she writes notes to her friends and folds them up and puts them in the can, and then we let the parents know, and then the kids come and they leave her notes, and they're she's just learning how to write. She's only 6, so
right.
But they're having these elevated discussions. Her neighbor Michael is asking her whether or not she believes in alien life, and they're writing back and forth, and it's a way. And of course, handwriting at any age, but especially when you're just learning handwriting,
Mm-hmm.
is so intimate that you're getting, you know, the force and effort that it put to
Mm-hmm.
write just a tiny little note comes across. And just love looking at these letters. And she thinks this is really fun. Something else she's done is, and this is thanks to a neighbor, he outfitted some of the children with walkie-talkies. And so, you know, in my house, like, it's sort of annoying because it's really loud, but at the same time, it's so wonderful. And she's walking around speaking to her best friend, Mia, 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 you know, and hearing that little bloop, 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 and making this fun, especially for children, I think
Yeah.
is going to help us bridge the bridge, you know, of what you were talking about, which is that transition from the virtual only meetings back to physicality. And that sort of touches on when I said, I think that we'll be seeking out professional help. I think that's true. I think some people are going to need some mediation and help to honestly probably leave their houses comfortably. I do notice in my circle of friends, I can sort of see the people that I'm not making judgments because everyone is going to handle reentry differently, right? But I do have some friends where I think, I sort of feel like they're never going to leave their houses again, you know, and maybe that's the way to do it, you know, but there's awkward feelings between adult friends of, oh, you think I'm doing my isolation wrong, or you think you're doing it better, or, okay, I had a social distance barbecue. That makes me a brave person, good person, stupid person. The answers aren't there. And
Right.
I think that we'll all need some assistance in learning how to talk to other people about what we're hurt by, what's making us comfortable, how our friendships have changed,
Mm-hmm.
what is trust, you know. It's just regular platonic socializing has now, there's a stigma attached that we have no skills. We're not really equipped with the skills to handle, like, so there's going to be a lot of room, I think, for people like yourself who are skilled in talking to people about touch and friendship and honesty um,
And like you as well. And and I'm not a trained therapist. I am an actor and an improv actor, and a lot of the rules of improv work very well in life, like make the other person look good. Yes, and it's all about the team. So there, we all have experiences, and you know, you as an author, when you've done research, you can share learning. But I don't want to paint myself as something I'm not. But I do live to communicate. That's sort of the red thread of everything that I do. And it sounds like you do too. And I believe in other humans, not just my tight circle, but the B list and the C list and the D list, because I'm a huge believer in small encounters, like
yeah, me
just
too.
random conversations you have with somebody on an airplane, if both people feel like it.
Right.
And but I mean, I am kind of encouraged by your feeling that maybe this will help us hone in. But I also agree with you that if we don't handle this right, this is an opportunity for us to judge each other, and perhaps unfairly. When I talk about kinship, there's a you know, K stands for kindness and I stands for interest, and it goes on from there. But if you're truly interested in someone else, you have to unsnap your judgment and find out more before you make a decision.
Right.
So,
And we also, everyone handles stress in such different ways. And this is a highly, highly stressful period. And I'm not saying everyone deserves a second chance. People could very well be having interactions right now with people that they don't want to give a second chance to. But
mhm,
I would say that if you have an awkward encounter that doesn't make you feel unsafe, it just goes
right,
awkwardly,
right.
you know, before writing that person off as saying, well, that I was close with them and now they're a weirdo, or we were becoming close, but I think no, just think, you know what, I have no idea what was going on in their house or their apartment during this isolation. maybe they were with an emotionally abusive partner. Maybe they've lost their job. What do I know? You know, and
Right.
that weirdness I felt, it could be coming from me as well. We have to just be gentle with each other, and we're all sort of learning to dance again, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's a lovely way to put it. And I'm a believer in chemistry, which you feel mostly in person. 16 years in the dating world showed me that my online best guy was, all it took was one dinner and an unwelcome touch on the small of my back to know,
Oh,
what did I waste all my time? You know, so
yeah.
we've all been through that, because and not everybody can be your best friend. That's not how the world works. We're meant to be closer to some people, but still small encounters, we can touch each other's lives. So I love what you have to say about this. Thank you. And I'm reminded of that probably around April, when supermarkets started to open up and the mother put her 5-year-old in the cart. Did you see this on the news? So she was shopping with her 5-year-old, and she was getting so many judgmental looks that she pasted a sign on her daughter's back saying, "Hello, I'm only 5 years old. I don't think my mother can leave me alone in the house when she goes to buy groceries. So please be kind and don't judge us."
Take it down a notch, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, that sign, it's just like, it humanized her. It
Yeah.
humanized the mother, and it humanized the whole situation, because we do make judgments and we fill in the gaps with our own thoughts. We, you know,
Right. And then
instead of asking people,
and of course, people are sharing their thoughts via Twitter and Instagram, writing like, "Oh, look at this idiot with her child." And we're so quick to share our judgments. And
right.
in the world before social media, you might have seen that and perhaps thought to yourself, not an ideal situation. Or you might think nothing, it's just a normal thing. But you wouldn't have been sharing your snap judgment with however many followers. So that's
Who
an ugly
are,
trend, you know, that needs to stop. People just need to take a couple minutes to think, do I really need to share this image? Do I really, and I'm guilty of that too. Do I really need to change to share this completely petty observation about someone I don't even know? I don't know what's going on with this person, you
right.
know?
Well, the thing is, and I think we'll have to end here, because it's after 2, and I want to find out how people can get in touch with you. But I'm so enjoying the conversation. I could go
I
another
know I am
hour.
too.
But you know, we know in the media that generally fear and anger, we used to say sells papers, but fear and anger gets clicks now and
Yeah.
gets comments. And even marketing people that I've spoken to who said, when you write an article, if you give it a negative headline, like "my
Totally.
neighbor is driving me crazy," that's going to get more clicks than "how to get along with your neighbor."
Ugh.
And maybe it's human nature, and maybe just being aware of it is enough. But I think it's so easy to get people to agree with us if we post something that's negative. And I try to post positive and funny things, like things that strike me funny, like how much I haven't gotten done in COVID-19. Like, seriously, I'm supposed to be writing my next book. No, what am I doing? I'm blowing bubbles with a 4-year-old. But that
More
is
important.
more important. Absolutely. So my last question to you is, well, I have so many, but you know, Sloan is a trend forecaster in the book. You are a trend forecaster. So I think you've shared with us what trends you think might be coming, which is great. Anything you want to add to that? And then just tell us quickly about your other books and how people can find out more about you.
Um, Honestly, I think altruism and kindness is going to trend because it's such the polar opposite right now. I think we can look forward to it. It doesn't feel like it right now, but I really think that we can look forward to some kindness
I love that.
and real
Altruism and
neighborhoodliness, whatever just small, generous, meaningful acts between strangers is what I hope for.
I hope you're right. I'm
And
going
then
to believe that you're right. I'm going to go with that.
And then in terms of people getting in touch, I was on a really fun teaching tour for this book before and after the book deal, which has, shape shifted. And if you go to my website, I will have webinars and things like that. But But a great way to stay in touch is, again, through my website, CourtneyMaum.com, MAUM. I have a newsletter about creativity with writing tips called Get Published, Stay Published. Get Published, Stay Published. And you can sign up for that. It's free, and you can actually write me that way. And a lot of people do, and I try to answer, and I've met some really great people that way. The small encounters, they go really far.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And of course,
Absolutely.
all your books are available on Amazon and most
or
of them on Audible.
bookshop.org.
Okay. Which is that independent bookstores? Okay, bookshop.org. And I'm Randye Kaye. My website is randyekaye.com or powerofkinship.com. We're both on LinkedIn. You can check us out there. And this will be available on the YouTube channel, Power of Kinship playlist, and as a podcast as part of the Life Talk show. Courtney Maum, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.